This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back, everyone, to Beat the Big Guys. I'm your host, Sandy Rosenthal, and I'm so excited that you're all here because my guest has lots of valuable advice and information for you, and she comes from the great state of North Carolina, Asheville to be exact. Her name is Cheryl Orengo. Hey, Cheryl.
Hi. Hi, Sandy.
I'm so happy to have you on my show. We all could use a little bit of help when it comes to beating the big guys, when it comes to making your community a bit of a better place. And we all have the ability to do that. So Cheryl, if it's okay with you, a lot of our listeners aren't already familiar with your work. So I'm going to go ahead and give them a little introduction.
Okay. So, oh, you are.
I am, yeah. So I've got your introduction right here. Okay. Cheryl has been an organizer for 20 years, leading rallies and protests in Asheville, North Carolina. She's a member of the Third Act North Carolina Coordinating Committee, co-leading a monthly Zoom roundtable that provides outreach to its members. Cheryl got interested in this work because she observed low-income people not voting for their own self-interest and often not taking up for themselves. So Cheryl, I think you've made a very important observation here. That's often very much the case. And I'm so glad that you've decided to do something about it. So go ahead and tell us whatever you'd like, how you got into this work, what you're working on. We'd love to hear about it.
Okay. Well, I'll go back to the early 2000s. And I was working in public health as a health educator, and that's where I came in contact with the low-income people. And I found out that Move On had opened an office right downtown in a very walkable area. And we were trying to help eliminate Charles Taylor, who was known as, now I can't remember. He had a bad reputation. So I was making a lot of phone calls. That's how I kind of learned to be an organizer, just by starting with petitions with Move On. And then I found out they had this office. So we made a lot of phone calls. Our office actually made the second highest number of phone calls in the country of all the cities that did it. So, we made a lot of phone calls, and after it was over and he did lose, and a Democrat got in, but he was a blue dog Democrat, but nonetheless, a lot of times people don't like that, but 70% of the time they'll vote with, Democrats. So they wanted it to go on. Move On wanted us to keep going, since Asheville seemed to be so kind of powerful and workable. So Move On started something called councils, and we developed a council in Asheville. And the guy, he's the person that got me involved. They decided that he should be the council coordinator, and then I worked with him. And so we started that, and the great thing about an organization that has a lot of people and their contact information. So they contacted a number, everyone that was Move On, that were Move On members, and we gathered them together. And so we had the first group that could actually start doing rallies and protests and things like that about what was going on. Then that's when I started really leading things like that. So eventually I became the organizer for Indiana, and Randy continued being the organizer for here. And that included in Indiana about 2 or 3 cities. And then he became the North Carolina council leader, and I became the council leader in Asheville. I really like to see people. In Indiana, I only could speak with them on the phone. They were lovely, and I loved working with them, but it was a lot of fun to be able to work with people in Asheville. So that's kind of how I got started with, doing a lot of organization, and, sometimes just starting at a petition, signing petitions, and realizing where those are going to go, and doing whatever you can to help whatever that petition you signed was for, and do whatever you can, donate a little, see if you can help online, that type of thing. So that's what I did. I started that way, and then I progressed to heading up the Move On Council for Asheville.
So it's interesting. Your final point you just, is this okay? An okay time to ask a question?
Sure.
I didn't interrupt your
No, that was a good place to kind of stop.
Okay. So you mentioned a very important point that that some people might donate a little. So different people have different ways that they can contribute and get involved. And not everybody will want to sign a petition. I mean, I've had it happen with me that people don't want to add their name to a petition for whatever reason. Could be all kinds of reasons. You know what? That's okay, because there's other ways to contribute. People can be uncomfortable about putting their name on something, but still believe it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you name one of those things, and that's make a donation.
Mm-hmm.
You can always use money.
Yes.
You can always use money.
Yes.
Everything's expensive. But I've actually had people contribute their expertise, like someone might be an attorney or an artist or a poet. I mean, I could go on and on, all the different types of expertise that people might offer. But it all starts with setting up the petition.
Exactly.
So can you elaborate a little in your experience where people have contributed other things and signing up other things other than signing a petition?
Right. Well, I think there's a good number of people who sign up to become members of like, for now, Third Act, and this would be the first level. They want to receive emails and information. They want to learn about what Third Act is doing. And that's great. We love when people learn about what Third Act is doing. And then they might think, oh, there's an action on, our last one was September 17th, when the United Nations, when the Secretary General of the United Nations was talking about the climate crisis. And, maybe they might say, well, there's going to be something right here. Maybe I'll go to that. And they just go to a rally or a protest. And some people are pulled in. That's what always happens to me. I'm always pulled.
Some people are just what?
Some people are pulled in. That's what happens to me. I get pulled in. It's like, okay, I got to be a part of this. And some people just, that's not their thing. My oldest daughter is very conscientious, very pro-environment, but that's as far as she goes. She's a teacher. She's tired at the end of the day, so that's what she does. But she signs petitions. She does whatever she can, but that's where it ends. And she always tells me that I'm able to get up in front of people and do things. And, but I said, but you're a teacher.
There's so many different ways that you can help make a better place. And being able to and willing to get up and speak is something very few people it can do, much less want to do it.
Right. People, I was very frightened when I was in high school. I became a social, what is it? student council member, and I was supposed to give a report to the class, and my neck would become red, and my voice was shaky.
Oh my goodness.
And then I got involved. Yeah, I got involved in drama.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's what gave me the skills to be able to do. Because in my job in public health, I was an educator and I was a trainer. So I had to get up in front of a lot of people sometime.
And you did it because you
know,
had to.
yeah, I had to.
Which is a great way to learn. I also wanted to point something else you said that was just really important. And what that is, you spoke about being on a mailing list. And so some people may not feel comfortable signing a petition, but pretty much everyone is happy to be on a list to receive information, a list of names to be updated. And that is really a lot easier to do than people might think. And a really fascinating thing that can come out of that is sometimes people who are actually the enemy will sign up for your list because they want to know what information you're sending out. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay.
Right.
It's totally okay because the enemy, I'm calling them, I'm using the term loosely, but the big guys, that who have an agenda, and that maybe they're making money doing what they're doing, and they don't want that to change. It could be all kinds of things, but let's just say the big guys. For them to be on your mailing list is not only is it not something to worry about, it can actually help you because it's the old saying, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. Right. There's so much truth to that. And what happens is they become your critics. And your critics are often the people that give you the best information and the best advice. They didn't mean to do that. They didn't intend to do that. Their goal was not to help you, but they don't realize. I can give you all kinds of examples, but it's so true. I'll give one example. My organization worked very hard to get an article published in a peer-reviewed journal, and the peer reviewers didn't like our article. They didn't like our conclusions, but the problem is you don't have to like them for them to be true. And so the peer reviewers, they criticized our report. They called it inflammatory, that we used inflammatory language, which we didn't. We know better than to do that. You never use editorial inflammatory language in a peer-reviewed journal, but they like the conclusion. So they called it that. But here's the important thing. They criticize our choice of source material. They criticized our choice. And you know what? That criticism made our paper better because they were right. We could have done a better job with our sourcing and our references. So the biggest critics were the biggest help to us. And so I'm going to stop talking because this isn't my episode, it's your episode. But welcome your critics. Listen to your critics, actually.
Yes, it doesn't hurt.
Can you think of any examples where that might have happened to you?
Well, when you're an activist, you're going to get a lot of criticizing. And one of the things I believe in is I really believe in win-win. That is something I learned working in public health and helping people to go from A to B and B to C to change their health behavior for the good. But some people just they write people off, and a lot of times people who are low income or whatever, they write them off, and so they criticize what you say because they really they're not interested in it. So that's one thing that I've experienced over time. But when I was with Move On all of those years, the protests would get, they would get pretty strong, and so there were always people there that would had signs against what we were doing. That was pretty common. Not too many, but there were some. And so there, but the criticism, I think the signs, that the television station, if they were there, they would focus in on their signs and then show a whole lot of the other signs,
Interesting.
Yes, because they wanted to show the people how many people were against and how many people were for. And the
that's
signs were very creative.
that's what the media is supposed to do. They're supposed to
Yeah,
sides.
yeah, both sides. So so I've always felt strongly about win-win and try to accomplish something, and help people, help people to move forward. That's my thing.
I think that's a great thing. And
I actually have been organizing since 2007 when I became the Asheville Council with Move On. I've been organizing a gathering called, it used to be called Dinner with Progressives. And during COVID, after COVID, we went to Breakfast with Progressives because all the restaurants were closing early. So we couldn't do it at dinner. And it's all about going forward. It's not about being a Democrat or a Republican or libertarian. It's all about moving forward. And that's what I do. And we eat together, and then I bring speakers to talk about moving forward.
that sounds like great advice. And I certainly feel that your critics or your naysayers, they they often are evidence that you are right. Or if you're not exactly right, that you're on the right track.
Right.
Otherwise,
and they're worried about it.
and they're worried about it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
So suppose I walked out into the street today and said the earth is flat. I would be ignored.
Right.
Especially since I happen to be here in San Francisco right now. Would definitely be ignored. But anywhere in the world, if I said the world was flat, I would be ignored. But if I get out there and I say, when I started saying, the flooding of New Orleans was not because Hurricane Katrina was a big storm. The flooding is because the federal government misdesigned the levees, and they should have held.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, the pushback I got right away from, of all things, the engineering trade groups. The engineering trade groups pushed back really hard. And again, that told me I must be either 100% right or heading in the right direction. It turned up I was right.
Yeah, so they were worried about it.
And they were worried about it. I worried. Yeah. You point something out else, Cheryl, that is really important, and that is the face-to-face. Now, I know that we can't do everything face-to-face, and much of it must be done either online or via email, or not so much snail mail, postal mail anymore. But when possible, the value of the face-to-face is just as important today as it was 100 years ago.
Yes, absolutely.
And when you can, try to make those face-to-faces happen. And I am the biggest offender there, because I am too quick to prefer to do a Zoom or prefer to do a phone call, or even text. And I've had to tell myself, no, you need to do a face-to-face, and you need to get together, and you need to get out of your office, get in the car, or get on the bus and meet somebody for coffee.
Absolutely.
It's not done enough these days.
Right.
And so when you said, I don't know if I said, I'm repeating this exactly right. I think you said you're old school. You still like the face-to-face.
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I'm fine with phone calls because I can just keep it going, and ask questions that lead me to, understand them and what their needs are and that type of thing.
And
You
even
know.
phone call is being done less and less. My goodness,
Right.
there was a period there that my children told me, Mom, don't call me, text me.
I know.
Now they're older now and they don't do that anymore. But when they were in college and their early 20s, I was told, no, Mom, don't call me, text me.
Right. Right.
Well, fortunately, that's not the way of the world. And you mentioned so many important things. I hope we have time to talk about all of them. But you mentioned, Cheryl, the value of working with an organization that, like Move On, that had connections and had a big outreach of connections, and that really speaks
Mhm.
to the value of allies. It would be great if we could beat everyone alone ourselves, but we can't.
No.
We need allies. We need
Right.
partnerships,
Mhm.
and the value is incalculable of creating partnerships and alliances with other organizations that really don't even have to be exactly like yours or even similar to yours.
Right. Right. Well, and that's why a coalition is so good.
Coalition,
Um,
that's it.
yeah,
Coalition.
I mean, I'm now the Poor People's Campaign in this area has, started a coalition, and so I was invited because of climate justice. And there's, other people, and somebody from Invisibles was invited, and someone from a homeless organization that we have here, and coalitions are wonderful because you have a group of people and worker bees to do things. You have more people. You can't just do it by yourself. And for our action, and I'll start talking about the action on March 21st, because that's how I got here. um, so when we were planning for this action at Pritchard Park, in Asheville, I had a list of all the people who, had joined Third Act and people who were involved in climate work. And so we all got together and we planned to do a number of different things during the hour and a half that we had. There were suggestions from Third Act, the National Third Act, which they call Third Act Central. Um, and, so we did that. We got 3 incredible speakers. These are people who are like experts. We had someone here from one of the colleges that wrote a book, and she interviewed a woman in every state about what that woman was doing for the planet. So that's kind of the gist of the book, reading about all these things. So she started the program, and it was wonderful. And we had, there was a lot of artwork that's provided. Third Act has artists that make some wonderful artwork. There's one behind me on the wall, and these are original art pieces that that are made by people that believe in what Third Act is doing. And so we got, I brought one of my former coworkers in to be the co-host. And she said, but I'm not an organizer. And I said, so we're both health educators. I said, so what did you have to do that action you did downtown Hendersonville? And she said, well, I had to call and get speakers and get people to do the tabling. I said, that's organization. You were an organizer. And so she did a great job. She was really good at press releases, so she did a lot of the work with press releases. And that's how one of the things that organizers want to do is try to get the press there, because we had about 55 people at Pritchard Park. But we had probably the local ABC affiliate station came. They did an interview with our climate expert that was on our committee, and then they were there for live coverage because it happened to be in the afternoon. So, that means that there were probably several thousand more people saw what was going on. And so 55 plus several thousand, that's what you want to do, is try to reach as many people as possible. And Third Act, Central and then Third Act North Carolina got a lot of new members after that action downtown. So one of the things that we had to do, pardon?
Phenomenal.
Yeah. And one of the things we were supposed to do was meet with a bank manager of one of the 4 banks that we were talking about, that are the banks that give the most money for fossil fuels. And so we had a Wells Fargo right next to the park.
Mhm.
And she went in and sat down with the bank manager, and he was very nice. He said, my family, we recycle, we do everything we can for, as much as we can for the planet, but I have to have a job to take care of my family, and that's why I'm here.
Wow.
So they had a lovely talk together, and that was a win-win thing, and when she told me everything that they discussed, he said, I will take this upstairs and I will try to get it to go as far into Wells Fargo as I can, because of that interaction he had with Beverly. So that was great. And then all the people, we had a group called Green Grannies, and they sing songs about the environment, about the climate, about peace on earth, things like that. And they sang a lot of songs that really got to, people were impressed by what they were singing, and it's fun, so then you got people, clapping and and chanting and all of that, and that really helps people to get engaged as well. So in any rally that I've ever held, you're trying to get people engaged, and if I couldn't do it, I bring in someone who can. Usually people will always know who they can bring in that will really get the message out there, and that's what it takes. There were some actions in March that took place with 2 people, and they gathered a small group and they gave their message. You don't have to have 55 people. You don't have to reach the TV station. But the way I got the television coverage in that one was that I had sent I'm relentless at sending press releases. I don't give up. I had sent 2, and I sent another one the night before, but it was a minute after midnight that I sent it to the local ABC affiliate. And I said that we were going to be downtown, and because that's a different crew. It's a different crew on weekends than it is Monday through Friday. So, and then they called me at, here I went to bed at about 12:30, and they called me at about 6:45. And I said, oh, hi, thank you for getting back with me. I'm so happy that you called, and we would love to have you there. And she said, oh, I'd like to set up an interview beforehand and film it, and then put that on the news as well. So we got, I would say, about 7 minutes of television time, which is
That's phenomenal.
unusual.
And the media, it's free. It does not cost you a dime.
Exactly.
And it's so important to try to get the media to cover your event. Now, I always caution people, if the media doesn't cover your event, it's no reflection on the value of what you're doing. None.
Right. Right.
But if you can get the media, get them, and writing a good press release and writing a lot of them is a great way to do that. And I can give everybody a little advice on that right now. Just open up any newspaper, look at any story online, and you've got a template right there. Just use the same template that other news stories. They're very short. The first paragraph, who, what, when, where. Second paragraph is usually a quote from someone, but just look at any and just model your press release after that. So you don't need to be a pro.
No,
Just borrow
absolutely not. Yeah.
from the expert.
Yeah.
By the way,
and letter to the editor is also a great way to reach the press. So you take one of their stories, they really like that the best. Take one of their stories. And climate's big now, so there's always going to be stories about climate. So read the article and then figure out, what it was all about and what you think and what you want people to learn from it. And then you send it in. And very often they'll print it.
Very often. Very often. So I wanted to point something out. You keep discussing so many important things. You mentioned though that the representative of the bank who talked about, well, my family recycles and my family does this and my family does that, but my company, I need to. He was speaking. I have to keep my job. You realize what that representative was doing? He was changing the subject. You're not there to discuss his personal life.
Right.
But he brought it up, changed the subject. And when people try to do that, you have two choices. One, just let them change the subject and say nothing. Or two, say, thank you for telling me that. Now, can we get back to the issue, please?
Yeah. Beverly basically just went from there to, well, could you take this letter up to your supervisor and see what they think? And then he said he went into a whole thing about, yes, I'm going to try to get it as far as I can.
Okay, well, that was actually put, and where has it gone since then? The progress with that bank.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't know. You have to hope for the best, But he said he was very genuine.
Okay, for all you know, you've already succeeded and don't know it yet. And that's another thing. I'd never give up. Don't ever give up.
Right, exactly.
So what you've done is phenomenal. I'm incredibly proud to know you.
Thank you.
Well, is there anything you'd like to add? We're about run out of time. Is there anything you'd like to add to our listeners before we sign off?
Well, if you're listening in North Carolina, we'd love to have you. And you can start by just contacting us at our email address is thirdactnc@gmail.com. And then if you want to join Third Act National, then you just go to thirdact.org. So, we would love to have you. One of the other reasons I joined was because of my two little grandchildren.
How old are they?
One, the baby is turning 1 next week, and my granddaughter is 5. And I think about all the time, what kind of world are they going to inherit? And that's what keeps me going.
Thank you from all of us. And thanks grandkids for getting your grandma into the So thank you so much, Cheryl, and thank you, the listeners, for listening to this podcast today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast on all your favorite platforms. And remember, no matter who you are, you too can beat the big guys. Okay, Cheryl, stay with me. I'm just going to stop the recording.